Hi there, Twist family. This is Jackie here. I am excited to be here with you, even if it's over the internet. We're really missing you guys here in the studio. We are going to be painting an ethereal love today. So I am excited to do this one with you, bring us into the springtime, which I know we are all ready for. So I hope you're ready, whether we're doing this with your family or whether you're doing it to get away from your family. We are here for you today. So before we get started painting, we do want to make sure we are set up for painting success. So what I want you to do first, make sure your painting area is covered. Either put a tablecloth down, some newspaper, or something you don't care about, because whatever you get paint on there is there forever. So just make sure wash out right away of fabrics and just be careful with your paints. Now, on top of your paper, you can either just set your canvas, or if you do have an easel, you want to make sure it is nice and sturdy. So you can always fold it out, make sure that back leg is out, and make sure this little top block is above your canvas. Now, other things that we have that are important for painting, we do have our beautiful colors today. Now, they are in these little handy dandy containers. Make sure when you are not, if you don't need all of them at once, you can always pour them out in little bits. And we've got white, we've got black, we've got our beautiful hot pink, we have yellow, green, and blue. Now, with our brushes, we've got them in our cup of water. I always like to start out with them there. Now, whenever you take them out of your cup, just be sure always dry them out really, really well with your towel. We have our biggest brush. We're going to use that for filling in. We have our medium brush for kind of our bigger details. And we have our tiny brush for our little teeny tiny details. And again, always keep them in the water when you're not using them so your paint doesn't dry on them. And at the end of our painting today, make sure to clean them out with a little soap and water to keep them fresh for next time. So we're ready to get started for our first step here. First things first, we're gonna wanna take that biggest brush out of your cup. Make sure always dry that brush off with your towel. All right, so first we are gonna work on our beautiful peach sunset. We've got white, yellow, and pink we're gonna mix together, and I'm gonna do that on my extra plate. I'm gonna grab a big scoop of white, maybe 2 scoops of white here. I'm gonna grab a little bit of yellow and a little bit of pink and see where that gets me. So I'm gonna mix those on together, and you can keep adding little bits of that yellow and little bits of that pink red until you get a beautiful peach color that you like. And it can be as dark or as light as you desire. Ooh, yeah, here we go. We got that peachy peach going on. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my beautiful peach here, and I'm gonna find my halfway point on my canvas. So right between the top and bottom. And I'm just gonna create a nice line going right across to split my canvas in half, going from side to side. Now with our sunset today, we've got this nice kind of curvaceous sunset. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create that curve. So I'm just gonna create a nice frowny face. I'm gonna be pretty dramatic with it. It's always good to be a little dramatic. And I'm just gonna go ahead and fill in this shape in between my middle and my curves. All right, so once we've got that going, and we wanna make sure, again, fill in all the way, you can even take your paint and go right around your edges here. Give it a super nice, beautiful finish. And then we're gonna go ahead and rinse out our brush. I'm gonna always make sure I kind of paint it around, whisk it around that bottom of the cup, make sure I get all of that paint out. And as always, we're gonna make sure to dry out our brushes. All right, so we're gonna start to get into this little bit deeper, darker part of our sky. But before we do that, we wanna make sure to add some white. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a little white on my brush. Doesn't have to be too full, but I'm gonna do some little swipes right above my beautiful peach part of my sunset so I don't make it icky. All right. So once I've got those colors together, and I'm gonna make sure I run my brush back and forth a few times, make sure I've got it all smudged together. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna take a little more white and I'm gonna double dip and I'm gonna grab just a little bit of blue right on top of my brush there. And I'm gonna keep going with those nice curvy strokes. And I'm gonna stroke on a little bit of that nice light blue as I'm working my way up towards my dark night sky. All right. So as I go, I'm actually gonna still leave my brush dirty, but I'm gonna just keep picking up more and more of that beautiful blue on my brush. And I'm just gonna keep working my way up towards the top. And again, I always wanna push that last color together with my new color. And I'm gonna keep dipping in that paint. I want it to feel nice and smooth as I keep going. I don't want it to drag across my canvas too much. All right. Now I'm actually gonna take this color right up to the top of my canvas, and then we're gonna add a little bit of even darker darkness in up at the top here. And again, you can make sure, kind of do those little outside edges of your canvas as you're going with each of your colors before you move on to your next step. Awesome. All right. So now that we've got it up to the top, if you've got a lot of white on your brush, you may want to rinse it out a little bit, but mine's pretty much blue. So all I'm going to do, and I may use my extra plate for this one, is I'm going to grab a little bit more blue, and I'm gonna grab a tiny little bit of black, and I'm just gonna go ahead and mix those together and make this beautiful, nice midnight kind of blue for our night part of our sky. Now I'm just gonna add a little bit in up at those corners, kind of follow my little curves as I'm going, and just add in that little darkness. If you like it really dark, feel free to add a little extra at those corners. Excellent, we've got our beautiful kind of twilight sunset going on. Now, something fun that's going on in the sky today, there are some beautiful stars up there in our night sky. Now, there are two ways to do it. Now, if you are feeling you want them perfectly in the right spot, or maybe you don't want to be very messy today, so be careful of where you're at if you're on your couch. I'm just going to take the end of my little tiny brush, I'm gonna dip it into some of my white paint here, just do a little dab, and I can go in and I can add some stars kind of wherever I would like to see them up here at the top. Or if you're feeling a little funky, you can always take it outside to do this as well, but can add a little bit of water to some of my white paint. Make sure that water is an important part of it. And I'm using my medium brush for this part. And I'm just gonna take my brush and I'm just gonna pull it back and I'm gonna do some little flickers of paint. I'm holding it really close to my painting and I'll get some little splatter stars going on at the top there. Again, just be aware that that paint has a mind of its own and it may go anywhere. All right, so at this point, we've got our beautiful sky going on. We're gonna add in our little sun into our sunset later on. But right now, I wanna jump down and kind of get that first part going on my water, our beautiful lake here. So I'm gonna make sure, again, my brush is very clean. I'm gonna clean out that big brush again, really whisk it around that bottom of my cup, and I'm gonna make sure I dry it out again. Now down here at the bottom, we've got our beautiful kind of teal blue lake going on. So we're gonna be using our beautiful green, and I'm gonna maybe use a little bit of blue and white with it. So how I love to do this. So I'm gonna take some green on my brush, and I'm not gonna mix it together because I don't want it to be a perfect color. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some green, take a little baby bit of blue, and a little baby bit of white, and we'll kind of play with it as we go. So we're gonna start right where our sky is meeting up with our blank canvas. And I'm just gonna start with a nice line going right across here. Now don't worry if there are some lumps and bumps because we're gonna add on a little mountain range a little bit later. So we'll be able to kind of hide any mistakes we might have here. And it's nature, so if it's a little lumpy and bumpy, that is absolutely okay. And it's okay to overlap a bit So you're better off going a little further into your sky than not going far enough. So as I'm working through my water, I do like to stick with those side-to-side strokes because that's going to make it look nice and calm, like it's not too windy in our little painting world. And I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to use that green, I'm going to use that blue and white. Each time I pick it up, maybe a little different. You see, I always end up with a really messy paint plate here. But it's okay to see those little streaks, and we're going to add in a few more later on. And if green is not your favorite color, it's okay to use more blue as well. Now I'm kind of working my way down through the middle here first, and I'm going to keep heading down towards my bottom edge here. And I'm again using mostly green, a little bit of blue, a little bit of white. And we're just going to go right down to the bottom and kind of create this nice light area for our water. And again, those little side-to-side strokes are going to make it nice and calm, and we are going to have it be looking like water already. All right. Now, once we have our little middle area filled in real quick, I do want to brighten it up just a little bit. So while it's wet, I'm going to take a little bit of white and a little yellow right on my dirty brush there. And I'm going to go right back through the middle here. I'm going to imagine my sun is right up here. And I'm just going to go in. I'm going to take a little bit of that yellow and white. And I'm just going to brush it in and kind of push it right into this middle area. Again, the better you stay with those little side-to-side strokes, kind of the more natural it is going to look in your water. All right, and just a little bit goes a long way, although if you like those bright green colors, it's great to go for a little bit more. Now, I just want to finish filling in my last little white parts on our canvas here. That's our goal, is just to get it all filled in. So I'm going to dip into a little bit more blue and green, maybe leave it a little darker, kind of out towards my edges. And I'm still going to go with those side-to-side strokes. And I'm just going to go right off that outside edge. And again, I'm always going to push it together with that color that I already have on there. You can even use your brush with that little skinny side to go right through and kind of do a little longer strokes and drag those colors right together. And again, take a second, wrap those nice outside edges, get that really professional look going on. Excellent. I'm just going to make sure, kind of fill in my last little part here. All right. So at this point, once you do have it all filled in, your best bet, even if there is something you think you want to change, is to take a break. We are going to walk away from it for a little bit. This is a great time to get some snacks, refill your drinks, and then we will jump back in and kind of get back to it shortly here. All right, so we are back from break. Our painting should be pretty dry. You should be able to kind of touch it with your fingertips and have them not be too messy. Now, what we're going to work on in this layer, we're going to start with our beautiful sun, which is an important part of our sunset. So for this next step here, I am going to be using my little tiniest brush just to kind of keep my sun on the smaller side. You do want to make sure it is nice and clean and dry once again. So for my sun, it is going to live right here on my horizon line, and I'm going to use a little white and yellow for it. Now, I always recommend when you're trying to make something that is a circle, start a little smaller than you think you want it, because sometimes it's going to get a little bit bigger as you perfect it. And we don't want it to go too far into our water, even though it may touch it just a little bit. So I'm going to try and find, again, my nice center area here. I like to hold my brush pretty close when I'm using this small one. And since my painting is dry, I may even rest my hand on my canvas a bit. And then I'm just going to do my best to kind of create that little half circle shape. Although if you wanted your sun higher in the sky, you could definitely move it up and make it more of a circle. And then I'm just going to go ahead, once I have my rough shape, I'm gonna take a little bit more of that yellow, and I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of fill it in, and maybe take a second and redefine my line at the top of it so I don't have a lumpy sun, although a few lumps and bumps, no one is gonna notice them. All right, so once we've got our sun going on, I am gonna take a little second, and while I'm still using that small brush, I wanna add in a few little reflections into my water, so we've got some nice little colors going on. So colors that I'm gonna be using my white, my yellow, and my nice hot pink here. So I'm gonna take a little white and a little yellow on my brush. With this small brush, keep in mind the lighter you press, the smaller your strokes are gonna be. Kind of the more aggressive you are with it, the thicker it is gonna get on you. And again, I'm gonna stick with those really flat side-to-side strokes, not smiley faces. And I'm just gonna go in right underneath my sun. I'm gonna pick a few spots just to kind of lightly brush in some yellow and white. Now, it only lasts a couple strokes before you're gonna wanna pick up some more paint, so I may dip into my paint a time or two. And it's up to you, again, how much of that color you want going on. Now you can always give your brush a little rinse in between colors, but I'm gonna do some white and some of my nice hot pink, or you could do some of that beautiful peachy color that we've got going on in our sunset. And again, I'm just gonna go right back through, make a few more little reflections with that side to side stroke. And it's okay for it to touch your yellow ones or kind of be on its own. It's supposed to be nice and light. Now, real quick, if you do get a little bit of a thicker one, or you just want to kind of fade them out a little bit more, make sure your big brush is clean, but while they're still wet, you can take that big brush and just do a few side-to-side strokes and smudge them out. That's what I'm going to do with mine. So it's a little bit lighter and softer, but this is one of those things, sometimes less is more. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just leave it be. All right. So a beautiful part of our painting today, we have these little hills or very small mountains between our sky and our water. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of start working on those. Now you wanna make sure with our mountains, we don't want them all to be exactly the same. We want them all to be a little bit different from each other. But what I'm gonna start with first thing I'm gonna take my medium brush out of my cup and I'm gonna give it a little pat off, but it's okay if it's a little wet still. And I'm gonna take some black. Now this is probably gonna be one of the scariest lines of your painting, but what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go through and I'm actually just gonna cut my painting back in half. I'm gonna go right through, kind of separate my sun from my water and separate my sky from my water here. Now, my mountains today are just gonna be kind of closer out to my outsides, and I'm not gonna do very many. They're only gonna be maybe a finger width or so tall from that line that I just made. And I'm just gonna make a couple lumps and bumps, and then I'm just gonna run it right into that line. Same thing over here. Maybe I make a lump and a bump and just kind of run it into that line. Now it's okay if, again, your line is lumpy and bumpy. It will make it look more like land anyway. And then I'm gonna just curve it a little downwards at my edges so that it looks like my mountains are a little bit closer to me and kind of curving towards me, towards my outsides. So I'll do that again over here. I just kind of did a little swoop, kind of curved it down. And then I'm filling in between those two lines. And we've got our beautiful mountains in our background. And again, if they're a little bit bigger, maybe you're just a little closer to your mountains today. All right. Now, while we're working with our black, I'm also gonna go in and I'm gonna add in a nice little island or a little peninsula for our tree to live on. Now, I'm gonna just go in right down here at this bottom corner. And I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it off. I always like to make sure it's got a lump or a bump just to make it so it's not a perfect shape. And I'm just gonna go ahead with that medium brush and I'm gonna fill it right in down to my bottom here. Now on my island is the star of our painting today. It's our beautiful tree. Now with trees, there are a couple rules that I like to follow as I paint them. So we can always watch along and then kind of go back and watch along again as you paint your tree. Now I'm going to use that medium brush, but feel free if you do want to use that smaller brush instead, or use that smaller brush for the ends of your branches. That is absolutely okay to do. Now for mine, I'm going to start out just with my main branches first, and then I'll go in and I'm going to add in some smaller ones to my tree. Now for this tree, it is a little kind of funky because I am going to create a nice heart shape around my sun here. I'm going to bring in that little spring love. Now, for my tree, what I'm going to start with is always a single line. No matter how you're going to do your tree, I'm always going to start it out by making one line from where I want it to grow. And I'm just going to take it up here to my sky, somewhere where I want it to kind of grow to. Now you can always, as long as you press lightly, sometimes I'll go back down and just make sure that bottom part is the thickest part. I always want that to be the thickest part of my tree. Now, for this particular tree today, again, I am going to aim for my next branch to kind of be over on this side of my sun. So I know I'm going to have that space to make my heart. And I'm always going to start back at the base of my tree. I'm going to always follow along, and then I'll go off my other direction. So maybe it just kind of comes over here for now. So I'm just kind of creating these nice Y shapes. So that way we've got that nice base at the bottom, and we've got our nice Y shapes kind of branching off for our tree. Now to keep adding on branches, I'm always going to make sure I pick up fresh paint for every branch, and I'm always going to start at the bottom. Even if my trunk is as thick as I want it, I'll always go through and start at the bottom before I add another branch on. Now, as I'm going, again, I'm always going to try and leave my ends alone as much as I can. And generally what each branch does is turn into 2 branches. So that way they're kind of growing out and around. Now, once you have a few strong branches on your tree, maybe we've got our base kind of as thick as we want it there. This is a great time to switch and use your smallest brush to add on those kind of smaller, more detailed branches, or to do something like add your heart on around your tree. So even though my branches are as thick as I want them, I'll still make sure I'm gonna kind of follow my branches before I take a branch off. Maybe over here, so I got my left side of my heart, and then maybe over here I kind of create that side of my heart and come back down towards my tree here. Just get a little bit of that heart shape. Doesn't have to be perfect because it is a tree heart and not a real life heart. All right. Now we can add on a few extra branches here and there, kind of wherever feels right. And the nice thing is we're gonna add beautiful blossoms onto our tree. So if there are areas that we don't like on our branches, we will make sure we put some branches there, or blossoms there, especially kind of towards the end of our branches. It's okay to do branches, again, really anywhere, as long as you kind of just bring them right out of your little branches. And you don't want to come straight out. You want to kind of follow and curve them out rather than come in straight out like a T. And if you ever end up with a spot that's a little thicker up here, we make it a little thicker down below. It's always going to make our tree look a little happier and healthier. Now, another trick to make your tree look a little thinner, if you feel like you want to see a little light touching your tree, I'm going to do it with my smallest brush. I actually like to leave it dirty. I'm going to take a little white, and I'm just going to follow along my tree. And I'm going to streak a little bit of white through my branches. I'm really just going to do my main branches, so just kind of lightly streaking it right through my trunk and kind of following that shape of my tree just to bring a little lightness to it. Now, the last thing that's going on with my dark colors, there are a few little grasses on my island. And I'm just gonna start on my island, take a little black in my smallest brush, and I'm just gonna do a couple little strokes upwards just to add in some little plant friends for my tree so it's not lonely on this island. All right. Now you may want to let your black dry for a minute if you are gonna jump right into your blossoms. Just be aware that you can pick up a little bit of that black as you touch them on. Now for my blossoms today, I'm gonna start out with some white and then we're gonna add on some beautiful pink blossoms, but you can really do your blossoms kind of whatever color that you would like the most. So for my blossoms today, I am gonna use my medium brush. Really, all these blossoms are just little dabs of paint right over my tree. Now, I'm not gonna line them up perfectly on each branch. I could pretty much close my eyes, put a blossom on here, and there is no wrong place. They're kind of blowing away with the wind on this one anyway. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna again dip into my white, and I'm gonna pick a spot. I like to do a lot at the top, so I'm gonna start there. And I'm just gonna go in, dab, 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 kind of everywhere. And I'm gonna start to build up those little blossoms. And as you can see, I'm not just on my branches, although I am touching my branches here and there, but I'm also going in between. And I'm really gonna build them up. I like to kind of go a little bit above my tree, really make it beautiful and full with those little blossoms. I'm also using more the side of my brush than the tip of my brush. If you use the tip, it's gonna make really small dots, but I'm really using the side, and I'm really pressing fairly hard with it to get those nice, thicker shapes going on. Now down here, I like these little smaller ones down at the bottom. We can also, again, maybe they are flowing downwards from our tree a little bit, kind of creating that ethereal feeling for our painting. And even if there's not a branch somewhere, again, you can make there be leaves there. Maybe we've got a few that have fallen on the ground too. So maybe there's some on our little island. Awesome. So once you are feeling like you got a good amount of those white blossoms going on, again, I am gonna go with pink for my second color. So I'm just gonna take some white, take some of that nice hot pink, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do right over my white. So I'm gonna pretty much ignore those white ones and just add more pink ones right on top. So it's up to you how filled in you want your tree to be. But I think it's one of those things, the more you do, the better. So just kind of keep going for it. And again, it's up to you and your beautiful tree, how you feel like it should look. Excellent. So last but not least on every painting, if you want to add on a few more big stars, you can always add on with your bigger brush, some bigger stars. Again, creates a little bit more drama. But your last and most important step of your painting is to claim your work. You definitely want to sign your name on your painting. There really is no wrong or right place to do it. I usually do mine kind of down here at the bottom somewhere. My favorite place to do it on a painting like this is just put my little name in the tree. And we've got our beautiful ethereal blossoms. So I hope you guys enjoyed painting with us. I'm sure your paintings turned out amazing, and we really miss you guys and would love to see you back in the studio as soon as possible. So thank you guys so much.